Will Patrick Kane be back with the New York Rangers next season? Showtime Patrick Kane, of course, figures to have a very interesting free agent market as we head toward the free agency period, which starts on Saturday, July 1st, so just about a month away here. We're going to discuss whether the Rangers could, should, and ultimately will bring back Patrick Kane for next season and potentially beyond. Also going to dive into the latest on the New York Rangers search for a new head coach. All that and much, much more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Welcome back, Blueshirts fans, to episode number 838 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So with Patrick Kane, I figure a little bit of recapping is in order before we kind of dive into the reasons why the Rangers should bring him back, why they shouldn't bring him back, if they want to go down that road, you know, how they would navigate the salary cap situation, the whole 9 yards. Going to cover this from every single angle on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers. But for starters, some recapping, like I said. Patrick Kane comes over to the Rangers at the trade deadline. Very unique situation where by all accounts, it felt like he was only going to approve a trade to the New York Rangers. Obviously, the Rangers, before acquiring Kane, they had that deal with the St. Louis Blues where they brought in Vladimir Tarasenko as well as Nico Mikkola. They later went out and got Tyler Mott as well. So it felt like there wasn't enough cap space. There was really no way to make it happen. The door, I guess, was still kind of cracked, but all of a sudden, the door kind of got kicked in because, the rumors picked up again, and the Rangers had to do some things to, accrue some cap space. They had to play shorthanded for a couple of games, and, ultimately, they were able to make this deal work. They also had the Blackhawks taking on 50% of his salary. There was a third team involved that took on 25% of his salary. So the Rangers, by hook or by crook, they found a way to make it work, and we're left with about $1,000 in salary cap space. So a pretty crazy situation, and I think fair to say Patrick Kane, his time with the Rangers, though brief, if you include the playoffs, it was only 26 games. A little bit of a mixed bag, certainly some ups and downs throughout the entire thing. But again, to just kind of conclude the recapping portion of today's episode here, 19 games with the Rangers in the regular season, 5 goals and 7 assists, and then he, of course, played all 7 games of the playoff series against the Devils, and in that series, 1 goal and 5 assists. And as I've kind of alluded to and as I've talked about in previous episodes, Patrick Kane, to me, one of the more polarizing Rangers in recent history, and it's even crazier just how polarizing he became almost immediately when you consider the fact that he only played 26 games with this team. I would say certainly since Locked On New York Rangers has existed, and this is the 4th season, the one that just concluded that we've done, he's up there. He might be at the top of the list as far as most polarizing New York Ranger. It felt like as soon as he was traded for, before he ever even played a shift with the Rangers, he was certainly, kind of dividing the fan base. There were people that loved it. There were people that hated it. There were people that kind of in between. And then, of course, once the games start, he's under a magnifying glass, and understandably so. The 3-time Cup champion, one of the best players to ever do it. And obviously every move is going to be scrutinized and every move is going to be analyzed. And that's kind of what we got for the 26-game period that Patrick Kane was here. But as far as me, I've heard it from both sides. I've heard it from the Kane supporters. I've heard it from the Kane naysayers. And the fact that I'm kind of hearing it from both crowds, to me, says I've done okay with this. I think I've been pretty fair and pretty objective when it comes to Patrick Kane. But anytime that I would critique Kane and say oh man, we need Showtime Patrick Kane. We need the guy that's a 3-time Cup champion. We need the guy that's a perennial all-star. There were people that would say things like, oh, man, he's doing so much better than you're giving him credit for. He's on a new team. He's got the bad hip. He's fighting through that. He's doing better than the other Ranger forwards. He's doing better than the other guys in the top 6. And, in the playoffs, I think that was true, and I said that much in the playoffs. I think for the most part of that 7-game series, if you take a look at the 6 Ranger forwards in the top 6, he was probably one of the better ones. I'd have to put Kreider ahead of him. Kreider had some big games. But, I think he did better certainly than Panarin, did better than Trocheck. Probably did better than Mika. That one's maybe a little bit closer. But, overall, as we know, the Ranger top 6 just did not get it done in that playoff series. So saying that is setting the bar somewhat low. But then by that same token, there were also people kind of from the other angle, because when the Rangers traded for Patrick Kane, I was for it because, again, there's some risk involved. Patrick Kane's a little bit older. He's not the player that he was when he was in his prime. But again, you are getting a playoff-tested player, a champion, a guy that's gotten it done in the postseason more times than we can count. just a ton of playoff experience in general. When you can get that player for just a conditional second-round pick and a fourth-round pick, I think you have to do it. And there's people now that in hindsight, obviously, it didn't go great for Patrick Kane here. I think that's fair to say as well. So there's a lot of people saying to me like, oh man, admit you were wrong. You wanted Patrick Kane and this, that, and the other thing. And look, I stand by the Rangers' decision and I stand by my opinion that when you can get somebody of his caliber for the price that they got him for, it's a risk that has to be taken. Now, did it work out perfectly? Obviously not. The Rangers got knocked out in the first round of the postseason, and Patrick Kane, to me, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later in today's episode, something just never quite clicked between him and the New York Rangers. It just never felt like he was one of the guys. It never felt like he was ever really all that comfortable here with the Rangers. Something just felt a little bit off. There were flashes of Patrick Kane being the player that he's been throughout his career. I think Game 2 against the Devils, perfect example of that. Really took over that game, had 3 points, had a goal on a breakaway where, he forced a turnover at the blue line, went and got the puck, powered his way to the net, roofed a shot on a partial breakaway there. Kane looked awesome in Game 2, but, that version of Patrick Kane, Showtime Patrick Kane, we didn't get enough of that, in my very humble opinion, while he was there. So again, I think it's fair to call it a mixed bag. He had his moments here and there, but obviously, this was a Ranger team that was a here and now team looking to win a championship, and they don't even get past the first round. Despite dominating games 1 and 2 on the road and going up 2-0, get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. So a disappointing end of the season, obviously, and Patrick Kane has a hand in that. Not going to put the whole thing on him. There's a lot of players, out there for the Rangers that did not get the job done. Nobody, for me, other than Igor, was at his absolute best for that playoff series against the Devils. So, that's what happens. When you have an entire team of players that underperform, you probably get knocked out of the playoffs. And again, it's not all on Patrick Kane, but some of it's on Patrick Kane. Some of it's on pretty much every single player on this Ranger team. I'm going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to talk about a couple of factors in Kane's favor as it stands to the Rangers potentially trying to re-sign him, and a couple of things that might be working against Patrick Kane as far as the Rangers, eventually re-signing him in this offseason here. And we're going to tell all that good stuff in just a second, but first, do have to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I use Athletic Greens literally every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great, and I wanted to see what all the hype was about. Now I've been on it for about 13 months, and I love it. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy, has kind of a mild tropical taste that I actually look forward to every morning. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It costs you less than $3 a day, you're investing in your health, and it is cheaper than your cold brew habit. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, we just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And for the everydayers, definitely stick around throughout the week here. There's rumors that the Rangers might be closing in on naming a new head coach. Obviously, whenever that does happen, could happen later today, could happen a month from now or 2 months from now. You never know for sure. Probably not 2 months. I think they'll have a coach in place by then. But bottom line, whenever it happens, we're going to cover it from every single angle and obviously have a lot of fun with that. And I know everybody has their favorites, so fingers crossed that the Rangers obviously picked the right guy, because the decision as far as who's going to be the next head coach of this team, the importance of it could not possibly be overstated. It's just absolutely monumental as far as this team eventually getting to where it needs to go. A lot riding on the Rangers making the right decision when it comes to who the next head coach is going to be. For right now, though, let's keep the focus on Patrick Kane, obviously an impending UFA. Something that I do think that Patrick Kane has kind of working in his favor right now, as far as his chances of being back with the Rangers, if he even wants to be back with the Rangers, it was interesting because his end of season, interview that he was doing with all the reporters, he was kind of talking about the Rangers in the past tense, and he was referring to them as they. And then, of course, one of the reporters asked the question that, every impending UFA always gets this question, would you be interested in being back? Would you like to resign here? Do you think you can be back with this team? And at that point, Kane kind of brightened up a little bit and kind of was like, yeah, I would love to be back. We'll see. That could be him just trying to say the right thing. I mean, there aren't too many guys in that situation that are going to be like, nah, it sucks here. I don't want to be back. I don't think too many people are going to say that. So we'll see. I mean, again, it's a situation that's going to have a lot to do with the salary cap. And that's another big time X factor here is the salary cap, because we don't know what it's going to be. I wish that, we did know, because then that would make my job and the job of, other people that cover this team. And obviously even for fans as well, you can kind of start to, navigate, kind of map out what the Ranger roster is going to look like next season. But the problem right now with doing that is we don't know what the salary cap is going to be. So obviously the higher the salary cap goes, probably the better chance that Kane or maybe, one of the other free agents ends up being back with this team next season. But again, that's a big time X factor. But the one thing that Kane, I think certainly right now you could say has working in his favor is the fact that the Rangers they can't figure out their right wing situation. There's next to no stability when it comes to right wing. 2 seasons ago, the Rangers bring in Frank Vetrano and they bring in Andrew Kopp, and those were basically their 2 top 6 right wingers the rest of the way for that season. And you could even throw Tyler Mott in there as well. Mott can play either wing, and he was another depth piece as far as the right wing situation is concerned both seasons. And then this past season, of course, again, there's really no stability at right wing. Goodrow and VZ, you can put guys like that in the top 6 from time to time, and they're not going to embarrass themselves or anything like that. But I don't see them as really bona fide top 6 guys. And so, again, right wing is the weakness of this team. The Rangers address it at the trade deadline. They go out and they get Tarasenko, and they go out and they get Kane. But going forward, other than Kakko, there's really not a lot there as far as right wing is concerned. I mean, if Tarasenko and Kane both walk in free agency, then who plays right wing in the top 6 next season? I would think Kakko would probably get one of those spots. Maybe the kid line is broken up and Kakko's in a top 6 role. Besides that, I mean, are you going to put Goodrow there, VZ, Will Cooley and Brandon Hoffman? I was going to throw them out there, but they're both primarily left wingers. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. And so I think for that reason alone, that would cause the Rangers to maybe take a long look at Patrick Kane here and wonder, maybe he's the guy, going forward for a couple of seasons here. Maybe, you plug him in. If you can get him on like a 3-year deal for a reasonable price, maybe that becomes an option for the Rangers. Again, just the fact that the Rangers don't have any stability, don't really have a whole lot of options. There's not really any big-time prospect right wingers coming along. I mean, Othman's played a little bit of right wing, so maybe you could put him there. But I mean, again, Othman hasn't even played in the NHL yet. You're going to throw him out there on the top line or the second line on opening night. You could do that, but obviously you're rolling the dice a little bit. So yeah, the fact that there's just not a lot of depth, shall we say, for right wing on the New York Rangers, I think that's something that works in Patrick Kane's favor as far as the Rangers maybe wanting to re-sign him and wanting to plug him into one of those top 2 right wing spots on the depth chart. Something that works against Patrick Kane is that if he re-signs for this upcoming season, whether it's for 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, whatever it might be, then I think at that point, every other unrestricted free agent for the New York Rangers is probably going to walk in free agency. Now, that could happen anyway. I've been saying all along that I'm not convinced that any of the unrestricted free agents are coming back. Last year around this time, we were trying to figure this out, and ultimately, the Rangers had like 6 or 7 UFAs last year, and none of them came back. Mott came back at the trade deadline, but they didn't re-sign him in the offseason. So, look, if you re-sign Patrick Kane, I know there's some people that want Tarasenko back. I don't know how realistic that is, but if you re-sign Patrick Kane, Tarasenko's gone. There's no chance that the Rangers, I don't think, can possibly find a way to re-sign both of those players. So if you're a big Tarasenko fan and you want the Rangers to do whatever it takes to hang on to him, if Patrick Kane's back, he's gone. I think also if you re-sign Kane, there's probably a good chance that Mikola's gone, Tyler Mott's probably gone, even Yaroslav Halak. The Rangers might have to go with a backup goalie who's basically making the league minimum next season in order to, have enough cap space for other things that they need to do, whether that's extending K'Andre Miller, whether that's extending Alexis Lafreniere, whether that's bringing some other free agent at a reasonable cost. We will see. But yeah, I think that's something that works against Kane. And I think the other thing working against Kane and I've kind of mentioned this a couple of times in passing on this episode, and obviously it's something that we've talked about in the past, but obviously the hip injury. I mean, look, we don't know. I mean, if Patrick Kane's going to have the surgery in the offseason, could he have the surgery, come back as a new player? Does he just need some R&R this offseason? Does he have enough left in the tank? You know, it's hard to say for sure. And, I mean, that's got to be frustrating when you've got a hip injury. And, you know, Patrick Kane's obviously been playing hockey for a long time, has had a ton of success at the NHL level and, you know, winning the Stanley Cups and everything. When your mind knows what you want to do, but your body won't cooperate, that just has to drive you crazy. And, again, Patrick Kane, there's times where he just kind of looks slow, and then he would have these bursts like we saw in Game 2 against the Devils where, man, this looks like, you know, the Patrick Kane, Showtime Patrick Kane. You know, we could debate how much the hip injury was bothering him, how much it hindered him. I would have to think that at least played something of a role here because, you know, again, he just never really looked like vintage Patrick Kane, at least not to me throughout his run with the Rangers, other than some small flashes here and there. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. There's a bunch of other things I want to get to here. I want to talk about the concept of Patrick Kane potentially taking a one-year deal, just a one-year deal to stay with the Rangers. And at first glance, you know, you look at Patrick Kane and he's 34, he's going to be 35. You might think that like a player of his caliber, of his ilk, would not settle for a one-year deal. He'll be able to get a multi-year deal in free agency, which he very well might. But I'm going to talk about why the idea of Patrick Kane signing a one-year deal is not as far-fetched as it might sound. And we're going to do that and also dive into the Rangers, the latest on their coaching situation. Going to do all that good stuff in just a second. All right, so this concept of Patrick Kane potentially signing a one-year deal. Now, let me preface this whole thing by saying that, you know, big-name free agents, this is not usually what happens. You know, when you have a name and when you've established yourself as one of the better players in this league, you're looking for a contract that has length and has money. I mean, I think most players prefer that, obviously, because, you know, they have some stability. You sign a 6 or 7 year deal with a team. Okay, this is where I'm going to be going forward. I can get comfortable here. That's especially true if you have a no-move clause thrown in there as well. And you don't usually see the bigger name free agents sign shorter deals. And with Patrick Kane, you know, being 34, he might want to take a 3 or 4 year deal so he has some stability going forward. There was a situation, though, and it has some similarities with the Patrick Kane situation right now. Taylor Hall, a couple years ago, ended up taking, he was one of the better free agents. He ended up taking just a 1 year, I believe, $8 million deal to sign with Buffalo because I feel like he just didn't think that he was getting the offers that he deserved or whatever it might be. So from his way of thinking, he was going to sign, you know, just a 1 year deal at a high average annual value, and then he can give it a shot the next season. And that's what he did. He was traded by Buffalo to Boston and ends up signing long-term with the Boston Bruins. So I feel like this could be something of a similar situation here. It's a little bit different because with Taylor Hall, he was quite a bit younger than Patrick Kane, so he knew that he would still have value after the 1 year deal ended. With Patrick Kane, you know, obviously he's got the hip issue, and he just had what was basically the worst season of his NHL career. So if he goes out there and signs a 1 year deal and doesn't produce, then that's certainly something that could work against him going forward as far as his chances of potentially signing a longer-term deal after that. So there is some risk involved on Kane's part if he only takes a 1 year deal, whereas if he takes a 3 or 4 year deal, then he's got all that money coming to him no matter what, and he's going to be with that team no matter what. So we'll see what happens. But with Patrick Kane, you know, again, coming off of the worst season of his career, I could see the line of thinking where, you know what, I'm not going to get the multi-year deal that I'm looking for. I'm not going to get the years that I want. I'm not going to get the dollars per year that I want. I'm just going to sign a 1 year deal. I wanted to come to the Rangers. I want to see this thing through. I want to try to help this team win a Stanley Cup. I'll sign a 1 year deal with them. I'll see what I can do. Hopefully help them win a cup. You know, that's obviously the ultimate goal. And then when the season's over, I'm going to have a good season and my value is going to be back up. And at that point, I can sign anywhere I want. Now, of course, as I say all that, there is some risk because Patrick Kane will be 35 next season. When the season ends, he's going to be going into his age 36 season. So, I mean, how many years and how much money are you going to get when you're 36? I mean, we'll see. But obviously, if he has a big-time bounce-back season with the Rangers next season and does well and puts up some points, then he might set himself up for a better payday the following season than he was going to get this year if he signed a multi-year deal. So that's at least possible. You know, a 1 year deal for Patrick Kane to stick with the Rangers. Whereas somebody like Tarasenko, he's not signing a 1 year deal. He's only 31. He's going to have multi-year deals thrown at him left and right. He's going to get a long-term deal. And, you know, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, if we want to look at like Tyler Mott and Nico Mikkola, They don't make a ton of money, so I would imagine they would want, a lengthier contract. I know Mott had to settle for a 1-year deal this past offseason, but I think guys like that who don't make a ton of money, they would look to get the longer term deal where they know there's a good amount of money coming at them regardless. But with Patrick Kane, again, kind of a unique situation where I think it's at least possible. I don't think it's likely. I won't go that far, but it's possible that maybe he signs a 1-year deal, sticks around with the Rangers for this upcoming season. For me, though, and this is something that I absolutely must talk about, and I hinted at it during the intro, something just did not click between Patrick Kane and the New York Rangers. And that's the way I felt watching this. On paper, everything looked awesome because, he's coming in and he's going to get reunited with Artemi Panarin. I know there were some people that looked at this situation and said, oh man, Patrick Kane, I don't want him here. He's this, he's that, he's old, he's hurt, he's hobbled. I just don't like Patrick Kane. I get that. But as far as the things that were working in his favor, again, you've got a reunion with Artemi Panarin, the fact that the Rangers needed help at right wing. Again, the price was right, a conditional second and a fourth for Patrick Kane, proven winner, 3 cups, tons of playoff success, seems to thrive when he's in the spotlight. He's not going to be blinded by the bright lights of New York City or anything like that. So to me, it was something that was worth the risk. But then he gets here and something just kind of fell off right away. Something just didn't quite mesh. You see, I picture Patrick Kane on the New York Rangers, and I kind of see him sitting on the bench and just kind of like staring forward into space and just like not really interacting with his teammates. There was very little of that. You just didn't see Patrick Kane, talking to his teammates on the bench. Something just felt a little bit off. And, I mentioned recently, earlier in today's episode, how, other players that the Rangers have traded for have come over and they've done their job and they've played a certain role and seems like they fit in right away. To kind of use those guys as examples, I mean, you look at like Andrew Kopp 2 years ago. This guy looked like he was reuniting with his like childhood friends and like he'd known these guys for his whole life. I mean, he fit right in, was always, smiling and happy and having fun. Frank Vetrano comes over, and this is the guy that's the sniper, right? This is the guy that just bombs away at the net. Every time the puck comes to him, he's looking to shoot. He came over, and he was immediately that player and seemed to fit right in with the Rangers. Look at Tyler Mott. He seems to be a very popular player within the Ranger locker room. He's come over twice at the deadline in each of the last couple seasons. Nico Mikkola got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he was always out there looking out for his teammates, watching their backs during scrums and whatnot. With Patrick Kane, again, something just fell off. You guys have all played sports. We've all played sports. You guys know when a team has chemistry, when something's clicking, when somebody fits in with a team, and when it just looks like something's a little bit off. And with Patrick Kane, look, is it possible that I'm overanalyzing this a little bit? It's possible. I'll concede that. But when you watch him just interact with his teammates, it just felt like he was never really one of the guys. And I don't know what the real reason for that is. Maybe the Rangers didn't, maybe they just didn't want him there. Maybe the fact that Patrick Kane was basically forcing his way to the Rangers with that no move clause, and I'm only going to approve a trade to the Rangers and this, that, and the other thing. Maybe that's possible. Maybe the fact that the Rangers had to play shorthanded for a handful of games just to accommodate Patrick Kane. Maybe the fact that the Rangers had to twist their power play into a pretzel to accommodate Patrick Kane. There's a lot of things. It could be any of the above. Maybe everybody loved Jake Leschyshyn. Maybe everybody was just a big Jake Leschyshyn fan, and they didn't like the fact that Patrick Kane got Jake Leschyshyn's roster spot. Who knows? But something to me just felt like it was a little bit off. The chemistry just was not there. And again, you watched the interview at the end of the season, and Patrick Kane for a while there talking about the Rangers in the past tense. It seems like maybe even he's ready to go somewhere else. Again, something for me just did not click. And it's one of those things that it's an intangible thing. There's no way to really break this down statistically or anything like that. But you guys, like I said, you've all played sports. You know what I'm talking about. You know when a team has chemistry. You know when a player is being embraced by his teammates. And when, for some reason, for one reason or another, they're just not. And to me, the situation with Kane and the Rangers kind of looked like the latter to me. As far as, the possibility of Patrick Kane coming back and whether it's going to happen, whether I want it to happen, I will say the idea of the one-year deal definitely intrigues me a little bit because I think with Patrick Kane, you're looking for a bounce-back season if you do a one-year deal, and you're not committing to him financially for a long time. You can't sign Patrick Kane to a 3-year deal, and then Igor Shesterkin becomes a free agent, and you can't re-sign Igor Shesterkin because you're paying all this money to Patrick Kane. But the idea, if Kane's open to it, and I'm not so sure he would be or not, of a one-year deal, it's at least possible. It could be worth a roll of the dice. But as far as giving him a multi-year deal where he's going to be around for 3 or 4 years at $5 million, I saw a projection the other day that Kane would get 3 years at $5.5 million. To me, that's too much. I'm not really looking to do that. Again, it goes back to the fact that it just did not seem to gel between Patrick Kane and the New York Rangers, and also the fact that certainly there's some risk there. The hip injury seems to have compromised him at least a little bit, and even if he gets surgery and the hip's good as new, he's not going to be prime Patrick Kane like he was when he was winning all those cups with the Chicago Blackhawks. So we'll see. Personally, I think it's time to move on. I'm open to the idea of that 1 year deal, but I don't want to see the Rangers, re-signing Patrick Kane to a multi-year deal, and then we're going to have to say goodbye to players like Lindgren. We're going to have a mess on our hands when Igor Shesterkin becomes a free agent because we're paying too much money to Patrick Kane. That's kind of where I'm at with the whole thing. I'm ready for him to walk. And as far as a prediction, I think that's probably what happens. I do think there's a better chance of Patrick Kane being back on this team than Vladimir Tarasenko. But again, I've been saying all along, I don't think any of the UFAs are coming back. And if the salary cap goes up, then that obviously can change some things. But as it stands right now, the salary cap only, for a while, the rumor was that it was only expected to go up $1 million. I don't think that's enough to try to squeeze Patrick Kane under the cap. Certainly not enough to squeeze Vladimir Tarasenko in under the cap, as much as I know that a lot of Ranger fans would like to see Tarasenko back. But we'll see. I think a lot of, the money that the Rangers have, under the salary cap right now, that's going to go toward new contracts for Alexis Lafreniere, for K'Andre Miller. We shall see. I'm hoping in the future we can do an episode where we go on capfriendly.com and we just kind of try to work everything. And again, it's hard to do this right now because we don't know what the salary cap is going to be. Once I know what the salary cap is going to be, I'm going to be a very happy person because, obviously we can kind of, just look at the whole thing, assess the whole situation, look at the options that the Rangers have, who they might bring in as far as other free agents, which free agents they can squeeze under the salary cap themselves. We shall see. But as far as, the prediction, again, I think Patrick Kane probably ends up signing somewhere else next season. Want to shift gears for just a couple of minutes here at the end of the episode. Coaching updates as far as the New York Rangers are concerned. And this is all per an article in The Athletic. Just to update you guys on everything, what's going on, who's a candidate, who's no longer a candidate, who the Rangers are looking to interview. So again, per The Athletic, the Rangers have been granted permission to interview Seattle assistant coach Jay Leach. We discussed him on a recent episode. The Rangers have also interviewed Peter Laviolette. Columbus and Calgary are both believed to be interested in Laviolette as well. And there are some rumors circulating right now, some whispers that Peter Laviolette might be the front runner for the Rangers. That's kind of been my gut feel that they're going to end up going with Laviolette. We shall see. It's kind of the safe pick, but I don't know. I mean, Laviolette's obviously had some success, so it's not a bad pick. As far as all the coaches on the carousel, who they can bring in, he's probably my top choice. There's part of me that wants to see them make a bold hire, whether it's Leach or Knobloch or Burnett, a new voice, somebody that hasn't really coached a whole lot in the NHL, at least not as a head coach. And in the case of Knobloch and Leach, they've never been a head coach. So to me, they're certainly worth some consideration as well. The Rangers are said to no longer be considering Mike Babcock. It sounds like both parties were kind of hesitant there. There's some bad PR with Mike Babcock. And if he's going to get back into coaching in the NHL, doing it under the bright lights of New York City might not be the best way for him to go. So we'll see what happens there. But it sounds like Babcock will not be the head coach of the Rangers, which I'm completely fine with. Spencer Carberry, still in the mix, but is considered to be unlikely. Carberry also has interviewed with both the Capitals and the Ducks. And apparently the Rangers have also talked to Patrick Waugh. He's one of the few coaching candidates that we haven't really discussed in a prior episode. Waugh right now currently coaching the QMJHL champion Quebec Remparts. They are participating in the Memorial Cup. And it sounds like there are rumors that Drury may have talked to Waugh back in December when Gallant was maybe like one loss away from potentially being fired in the middle of the season. And of course, to connect all the dots here, Drury and Waugh were teammates on the Colorado Avalanche 2001 Stanley Cup champion team. I figure we could pretty much call it there. Again, we're going to keep our eyes, right on this Ranger coaching search, and any updates, obviously, I'll come on here and discuss them with you guys. And when they finally do hire a coach, we'll be all over that as well. A couple other quick updates here around the hockey world. Brandon Hoffman and the Peterborough Petes now 0-2 at the Memorial Cup. They're in the round-robin phase of that tournament. They lost 6-3 to the Seattle Thunderbirds on Saturday. Offman had a secondary assist in that game. They then lose 10-2 to the Kamloops Blazers on Sunday. Offman had a primary assist in that game. Offman also was involved in kind of a scary moment. He put a hit on Kyle Masters in the second of those two games, and it resulted in Masters being stretchered off the ice. Offman hit him kind of from the side. I don't think it was a dirty hit or even a malicious hit. And honestly, Offman kind of gave him a little bit of a break. I thought if Offman really wanted to tattoo him, the opportunity was there. He didn't hit him as hard as he possibly could have, and kind of, again, caught him from the side. Maybe he was trying to peel off a little bit because he saw that, Masters was starting to turn away from him a little. But when Masters took the hit, he fell to the ice and kind of twisted and just hit his back against the corner boards there. Just kind of an awkward fall. He was stretchered off the ice. He did give the thumbs up on the way out, so that's obviously a good thing. No penalty was called on the play or anything like that. Again, I think it was a clean hit. Just one of those unfortunate things that can happen during the course of a hockey game, but obviously, fingers crossed that Masters is okay. And then as far as the World Championships are concerned, Canada is your gold medal winner. They eliminate Capo Caco in Finland in the quarterfinals. They beat Latvia 4-2 in the semifinals. They then beat Germany in the finals. They beat Latvia 4-2. They beat Germany 5-2. The U.S. in the other semifinal game lost to Germany 4-3 in overtime, and then the U.S. actually lost to Latvia 4-3 in overtime in the bronze medal game. As far as Capo Caco goes in that tournament, he finishes with 1 goal and 5 assists in the 8 games. He was also a +1 at that time. And I figure we could pretty much call it there for today. The only other thing that I want to mention is last season, and I've talked about this a couple of times already, but last season, Artemi Panarin, the Game 7 overtime winner against Pittsburgh, I asked you guys to send in your stories, email it to me, DM it to me on Twitter, do whatever you got to do as far as what you were doing, who you were with, how you reacted when Artemi Panarin scored in Game 7 against the Penguins. We're going to do the same thing this year, but we're going to go into the way back machine, and we're going to talk about all the way back in 2015, Derek Stepan scoring in overtime to eliminate the Washington Capitals. I want to hear from you guys. Share your stories with me. We're going to break it down in a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. I'm going to share, all the stories that you guys sent me. Where were you? Who you were with? What did you do when Capo Caco scored in Game 7 against the Washington Capitals? It's always fun to do episodes like this. I love hearing these kinds of stories from other Ranger fans. I'll share my story in the future as well. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. And definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.